try to do that.
So, welcome to episode 3 of the Renaissance Explorers Outer Space. Today, we've got Julio, who's going to guide us on a little bit of a grounding meditation before we kick it off today. Over to you, Julio.
Right. So, welcome all. I invite you to sit comfortably with your spine erect. Breathe a couple times. Feel your nostrils. Feel the present moment. Connect with your body. Then you start to feel the base of your feet touching the ground, to feel the connection to earth, and to feel the crystalline heart of planet Earth sending energy towards you in tendrils of energy that touch your feet. And this energy starts to rise through your body gently, energizing, regenerating, revitalizing your body, coming from your feet toward your legs and to the base of your spine, meeting the first chakra, a red vortex of energy that feeds on this beautiful energy on the planet Earth that's sending us. So this chakra starts to open, allowing the flow of this energy through this chakra, allowing the all that has been retained, containing the flow, let it flow, let it loose, let it flow, let the chakra spin in its most comfortable velocity, opening up. Then this energy starts to rise through your spine to the second chakra, an orange chakra that's passing with vital energy, the sexual energy, the energy that moves your body, gives you energy to all your actions. Let energy flow through this chakra, let this chakra open, expand. Then the energy continues to follow, to rise to your spine towards the third chakra, yellow pulsating chakra around your navel, close to the middle of your chest. And this chakra starts to open up as well, allowing the flow of energy from planet Earth to your body, expanding, allowing the flow, releasing tensions, releasing anything that would block the flow. Then the energy rises to your heart, the fourth chakra. It's a green pulsating vortex of energy in the middle of your body. And it's pulsating with energy of love, allowing this flow to pass through you and to channel and connect with all the other hearts of all of us here today in this flow of love and this green revitalizing energy. Then the energy keeps rising towards your fifth chakra, the throat chakra. It's a blue energy center, vortex that's connecting to our communication capacities, allowing this chakra to open and our communication to flow from the heart and from the earth. Then allow this energy to rise to the sixth chakra in the middle of our forehead, uh, deep blue, almost violet color. This chakra is connected to your vision of reality, of ourselves, and allow this vision to be purified, to be clear, to be precise. And then this energy flows to the seventh chakra on the top of our heads with a deep violet color. This chakra is a vortex of energy that connects us to the universe, Allow this energy to flow to the sun, and from the sun to the center of the galaxy in a beautiful golden light that returns to us from the center of the galaxy and towards the Earth Sun. And then from the top of our chakra, this energy goes down through the spine and merges in our heart. So then we feel the energy from Mother Earth and Father Sun merging in our hearts, and masculine and feminine, yin and yang energies connecting and allowing all the creation to happen and to take place. Let's feel this energy for a bit, connect to it, breathe this energy a bit. Allow it to expand in our bodies. Sense the present moment. And whenever you're ready, start to return to the present moment. Move your fingers, feel the presence. Whenever you're ready, open your eyes.
I wasn't quite ready, but in the sake of time, gonna get us going. I'm really interested in leverage points, so where we can apply the least amount of force to have the highest amount of impact. I really like considering those types of things. And to kick us off on the Renaissance explorers and to help us be the most effective we can be here, I would like us to come down to some first principles leverage points for us. Part of that is in how we communicate. So if our idea here is we're forming a container for collective intelligence, how we actually go about achieving collective intelligence rather than collective ignorance or collective frustration or collective chaos, is in how we communicate with each other. I think a lot of, at least in my history, I wasn't taught really how to communicate well with others. I don't really know very many educational systems that really care about how we're crafting communication to be. Anyway, don't need to get into it. Long frame, there's a vision I kind of saw yesterday. It was the synapses in our brain and how they connect and communicate with each other. It's incredibly fast and efficient. That's because there's a very clear pattern for how they send information back and forth to each other. How one neuron wants to receive information and how another one wants to send information. There's an agreed upon protocol for how that information is transmitted, right? So that's what I'd like to kind of create in this container first, is what are our agreements for how we communicate with each other? How do we best convey an idea? How do we format this idea? How do we want to communicate our thoughts and what we're seeing with the rest of the members and community here? For example, I have a pretty hard time with the word should, because should to me creates an idea of what should be versus what currently is or all the rest of the possibilities. So sometimes I might step into an adversarial position because if you say it should be this way, but I see it a different way, now I feel like you're against me because our ideas are, misaligned. So I try to translate should in my mind to could very often so that I can expand the possibilities and not become an adversary to the person who probably didn't mean it that way. That's pedantic, that's, focusing on the minutia of how a word is said versus the energy behind it. But the message is still there. How do we want to communicate with each other? Do we want to say that things should be a certain way, or do we want to communicate that we're open to possibilities and this is just one perspective we're bringing to the puzzle? Because that alone, if we already start off with a default that all of it is just perspectives and it's not actually facts, then I think we can get rid of a lot of tensions that might arise. Because we could already start off from the position of someone not being our enemy or saying our worldview is false. Another one that I love is communicating in bullet points. So how do we condense an idea into really small, really clear, articulate sentences so that we can convey an idea in a way that could actually be abstracted from? Finally, I'm just going to only give you 3 because I want to actually go into breakout groups and harvest our collective intelligence here. Another example of this is to convey with proposals. So if there's something that you don't like, to say, okay, well, I don't like this, that's partially helpful. What's really helpful, even if it's just a fraction of idea, is to propose an alternative, because that gets the creative discussion going and shifts the energy of being against something to being towards something else, right? So it's totally awesome to be against something, but be against it and then come up with an alternative. Again, even if it's half-baked, just to get the dialogue going. So that's like my 3 things, is to recognize that our perspectives are just that, they're perspectives. And other people are bringing perspectives, and our whole effort here is to conjoin our perspectives and come up with this idea called collective intelligence. So if we're already operating from that perspective and that position, then we know that other people's perspectives are valid, and we don't see truth. We see a perspective of truth. So how do we communicate that way? Second one, how do we communicate really dense and tight? So, oftentimes I'll write something out, and I have not been following this lately, but then you look at what you wrote out and then you condense it down before we actually share it on a forum or something else. I think if we all follow this protocol, then the forums are going to be way easier to read through and be able to get the gist of the message rather than long posts like Reiki makes. Finally, finally is to make sure that we're always using proposals. If we're against something, that's awesome, but then just come up with some idea as an alternative. Oftentimes when we're coming against something and when we actually think of an alternative, we start going through the process of all the reasons they might have come to that thing that we're against. And I often do this, where I realize, oh, actually that thing I thought I was against, that's a pretty good idea and I don't know of anything better. So now I'm no longer against it, right? So even the exercise of having to come up with an alternative is really helpful for setting the stage. Cool, so these are just three general ideas. These don't have to be our agreements. These are just my perspectives on it. What I'd love to do in groups right now, and we can just take about 10 minutes for this. I don't want to take too much time. Let's all share what we believe to be some core ideas here. I've got some thumbs up, so maybe 10 minutes was too fast. Do we want to go a little bit longer? Thumbs up if we want longer. All right, cool. This is probably worthwhile. 15 minutes. Yeah, cool. All right, so let's go with 15 minutes in a breakout. There'll be about, there's 21 of us here. Let's do 7 breakouts. So there's 3 people in each group. So it's about 5 minutes for each one of you to be able to share, and then try to do about 30 seconds where you sum up the harvest of potentially some agreements that you as a community, or as your little group of 3, came up with what you believe to be some really strong agreements that we can hold as a group to better communicate together. Feel pretty good?
And then we take another 15 minutes to share the groups on here after the breakouts.
Yeah, there's 7 groups. So if each group took 2 minutes to unpack at most, then it would be 15 minutes at most to do the harvest. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, 7 breakout rooms. It's going to be assigned automatically. All right, see you all on the other side.
Hey, Reiki. Reiki, hi there.
I already shared my bit. I'm going to be jumping from room to room, so completely ignore me. I'm just catching recording. You guys go.
Okay. Daya, if you are speaking, you're muted.
Mr. Oh yeah, I just said Mr. Kangaroo to Reiki. It's also a really cool song. Mr. Kangaroo. Okay. Because he's jumping. Because he's jumping from one place to the other.
All right. So regarding communication, who wants to start? And what's your perspective on how should we better communicate in these spaces?
Well, that's the questions we are going to speak about. I understood something about what we believe we share as kind of belief systems in the whole way of doing seeds, but maybe I got that wrong. We can speak about both anyway, whatever you feel like.
Well, since Reiki is here, maybe he can clear the question. So Reiki, are we speaking about how to properly communicate on these spaces, responding to your inquiry on using bullets and speaking hoods instead of
what are
shoes?
some agreements / patterns and how we can communicate? You know, in this group, the rest of our life, really, but let's just focus on this group, and which would make communication more joyful, easeful, fluid. So like I said, like condensing it down is really helpful to keep the conversation going. Coming up with a proposal is helpful to actually move towards an outcome rather than just being against something. Things like this. So if there's anything that you've found in your life that's been a really inspiring way to communicate, that you found really helpful or useful or joyful, or if there's anything that's just really practical and pragmatic about how to communicate that you feel like is, you know, worth sharing. So that's about it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe I can start because I have something really alive here in my heart, and I wanted to share. So, what I did study nonviolent communication for a while, and I think this is really helpful for group communication and to be mindful of the way we communicate, because we are really taught to communicate in a violent way since birth. You know, since when you're born, you're said you don't do this because your father will be angry at you or your mother will be sad at you. So you're not responsible for your own feelings, and you are kind of responsible for other people's feelings. And we are taught on right or wrong mentality, or this is right, this is wrong, you should be punished, you know, in punishing whoever did wrong and compensating whoever did right. This is deeply ingrained in our communication and our society, and it's very difficult to actually be mindful and conscious about this. So nonviolent communication is a very straightforward framework to communicate in a way that's, I see, more efficient, and also allows for better human-to-human communication because it allows connecting the heart, and that's the key for good communication in my perspective, right? Because when you stop judging people if they are right or wrong, if they are bad or mean or nice to you, and you don't focus on the judgments, but you start with an observation. So the first thing on nonviolent communication, you have a 4 steps for doing a kind of a better quality communication. So the first is you start from an observation, and an observation is something that doesn't contain or should not contain judgments the best that you can. For instance, you start with, this thing is green. I see this thing as green. This is my observation, right? Because I see this thing is green. And then the second part is, how do I feel about it, right? When I see that the ocean is green, I feel happy, right? So I bring my feeling about this observation. And then the third part is I bring the needs, right? So what are the needs that are connected to this feeling? So maybe I'm feeling happy because I have my need for tranquility met, right? And because this need is met, I have generally positive feelings, happiness, joyfulness, and contempt and confidence, and but when my heart needs are not met, I have usually negative feelings like sadness or anger. But negative feelings are not bad feelings, they are just negative feelings, and they should be honored too. So when you observe something that's triggering these bad feelings on you, like anger, bad feelings, I mean, negative feelings, like anger and sadness. We should honor them too, and we should be able to talk about them too, you know. And then when we connect, our hearts are exactly at this point when I speak about my observation and I speak about how do I feel about this and what do I need, and then I hear you, what's your perspective on this observation? How do you feel? What do you need? And then we connect our hearts because I see you and you see me, and when we see each other, then we can go to the fourth step. The fourth step is actually a request, right? So you only get to this request when you are absolutely aware that all the hearts are connected and every needs are perceived, everyone's needs are perceived. And so you can go to the request part, and then you go to the request part in a way that's not a mandatory request. It's something that your way to a strategy, right? To carry on that need, right? And then that needs all the needs that you see visible right now. And then the person can say, no, I can't follow with that request. And then it's fine as well. If you don't allow for this no as an answer, then it's not a request, it's a demand, right? And then it's a demand is also carries this violence implied. So we should be able to, and that's what Reiki meant when he said proposals, right? This is a proposal. How I propose to solve these needs that I see visible here in the air, right? So, and if you can communicate from this side, from this vision, these are much more harmonious, much more tend to generate much more connection and heart to heart communication. So that's how I can contribute to this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That resonates a lot with me, and I would like to add on it. I would say the three words: mindful, awake, and the third word would be listening. With mindful, I feel it's also important to be aware who you are speaking to, because from time to time you have an audience that wants to be taught, that needs the teacher. From time to time you need the visionary. And in all these fields, you have to sense the field. And I feel with communication, which is a bit more difficult in your Discord, but that's another topic. You can also do it there. If you feel the field, you know what is needed. Like Reiki is currently writing quite long information pieces, which are needed because there is a need for getting more facts on the table. And in other times it's different. Awake is for me the word to say, why do I speak? Why do I speak up instead of listening? And the third one for me would be also the listening part. So feeling also the rhythm and seeing when do I have really the room to speak up and when it might be time for being silent. And in face-to-face communication, I love if people slow down. And if you can be aware of the breathing in between and getting a slower mode in there. And one observation I would like to share is a lot of people are using, even if they want to speak about nonviolent communication, a lot of words which have the energy of more or less violent communication, meaning if you use a lot of bad or negative or violence, every word has energy. So I feel it's also important to balance the words we are choosing. So a bit of wisdom in the way we speak. That's all I would like to say.
Like, does it? Oh, hey, Ricky. All right. Sorry. Yeah. It works pretty well. I think it's kind of a more. I think what I feel the energy of it is like it requires you to be more polished, right? And so, it's like Lumio almost,
Yeah.
where you kind of have to come at it with like be ready, right. It's not so much Reddit, although it has Reddit style, but it's more like a Lumio where you want to put something really solid up there and be ready for like the discussion to really kind of, take on a little bit more of a polishedness.
Yeah, I asked that because I wonder, like, I really like that you brought up that question, because there's so much that could go on when we all return. And I wonder if some sort of kind of controlled experiment could be possible where we say, like, okay, we all commit to not having these sorts of long form debate conversations on Discord, but we'll do that in a, you know, experimental forum space. And in that experimental forum space, we have listed all of the proposals that we consent to in this next 30 minutes or whatever. So that way we're not mixing like all the people who are in this call with all the people who are in Discord who aren't. And as soon as we start trying to have conversation again in Discord, that just gets like bum rushed by people who didn't make these agreements with us. But if we create a specific space that says, like, to enter, you have to be willing to agree with these agreements that were set, it could be interesting.
What I heard was like there's a Renaissance explorer set of commitments. So as like a group of people who are committing to like something, we're deciding that in the forum and not on, you know, a way of not acting on Discord and a way of acting on in the forum as like a testament or test or experiment for what it looks like to change the way we communicate.
Yeah,
cool. I liked it a lot.
I like that. I've explored a little bit the forum last week, and I have this feeling that it like feels more assertive, more effective, because when I put my energy to like just say something towards one, let's say like there's this issue that we have that I want to point out. I feel like that's so much more like the conversation just on that direction is so much more assertiveness. So that's what I like the most. And it will be nice if we commit to like, we can continue using the Discord, but at the same time, we can try to use more the forum. So if I'm going to post something, I can question myself like, okay, can I write this on the forum in a way that will be more assertive and will not get people like in 10 different conversations in the same thread, which feels really crazy for me. Like sometimes I get like, okay, so much conversation in the same thread. So I like that idea of more effectiveness in the conversation.
Jan, can you change your word of assertive to something else? Just because I want to better understand what you mean by that.
Yeah, I feel like that word doesn't exist.
I was feeling that.
Okay, it's from Portuguese, I think. Well, it's something related to effective, like more. Yeah, so when I'm going to write something, it's towards what's being talked around. So it's not many different things happening at the same time. I think I can find a word for that.
It feels like it's not the right word, but it feels like thesis or like executive summary, right? Where like you have to really kind of.
It's a nice challenge for me to think, to question, you know, whenever you're doing anything, or you're doing something consciously, or is it the default behavior? And it's an incredible. It challenges your own ego almost, because if you're kind of accusing yourself of falling back into default behavior. Oh, anyway, I find it a useful wake-up call. I don't want to be default behavior.
Só pouquinho, pai, tá no qual eu tô falando. My husband is calling.
What language do you speak, Thelma?
Portuguese.
Oh, Portuguese.
Yeah, I'm Brazilian living in Portugal. And what I wanted to mention is that the nature of the movement, there are a lot of people coming in all the time, and just coming with fresh ideas and full of energy to contribute. And sometimes that eagerness to contribute might sound like you're not valuing what has been done so far. You're coming now trying to change everything that has been done, and not valuing all the energy, the work that has been put.
Yeah.
So I think that is also important to put a principle of, because we don't like people to come and judge our babies. Don't tell my baby is ugly. I will jump on your throat, of course. So especially what Michael brought about criticizing things that has been done, and these things are sensible. So it's important also to put the principle that values everything that has been done so far, and also giving space for other contributions to come, but in a way that values everything that has been done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very good point.
Beautiful. We haven't decided who's reporting back. I'd prefer not to if there's anyone else who wants to volunteer.
Nick?
Hey, Bandani.
Okay, welcome back. So there's only 6 rooms because we had a weird number of people, then more joined us. So if you were assigned to speak, just put your hand up and we will go in order of the hands raised. There we go. And then just go next after you go. But Jedediah, if you want to kick it off.
Correct. So we started with the word should, and we kept saying how we shouldn't use the word should, and thought that was pretty funny. And we were also talking about Discord and about the amount of information involved in staying up to date, and talking about how it was a cultural thing, and maybe there was a way to have a bit more of I can't remember seeing it, a bit more of a guidance around how to use Discord, and maybe building a culture around being more concise, and using discourse more for the long form stuff. An idea that came up also was to maybe have a third platform that would be sort of more like a Twitter style, so that you could only enter a short form, which would be good for all the various projects going on to keep updates going. Because I imagine that some people may not want to engage in Discord just because of the amount of time involved in engaging with it. And we had some other lovely discussions, but I can't remember them right now, so I'm going to pass it on.
Alrighty, I'll take it then. In our group, we started with continuing with discussion about communication, values in the communication. And one of the things is recognizing what's opinion and what is a fact in communication. Second bullet point was awareness that everything that we talking is a story. So it pretty much comes to don't take things personally if it comes to that. And then, so we are, when Yureki said that what's the values here and where is the here in the outer space of explorers, I reckon we are focusing on steps and rules, how to throw a path towards this resilient regenerative civilization or regenerative renaissance. So this bullet point is focus on the steps and rules, and use a constitution as a guide for these values, how we can move towards this resilient regenerative civilization. Coming from the heart space and thinking, knowing that there is something bigger than us and put our egos aside, and trust. And instead of building trust, starting from trust, just granting trust and trusting to each other. And that's us. I'll pass it to Tyler.
Awesome, Dimitri, thank you. So yeah, we got one clear proposal and then kind of like a meta proposal to help perhaps us organize all of these. So that first one is, I commit to taking full responsibility for the circumstances of my life and my physical, I'm gonna put it in the chat, and my physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual well-being. I commit to support others to take full responsibility for their lives. That was kind of a major one for us. And then Justin raised a great question around, like, how can we actually make the use of this time and all of this conversation here most kind of impactful and actualizable? And out of that came a conversation around the forum space. And so kind of a meta proposal here that we're offering as well is that we collect all the proposals that we raise here today and do a quick round of thumbs up and hear if there's any kind of blocking objections. And if we get a majority thumbs up and no blocking objections, that we then post these proposals that came out of the session as like a header post in the forum saying that on June 22nd, Renaissance explorers came together and agreed that these would be some of the guidelines that we'd use to interact on this forum space. And by showing up, you are agreeing to follow those. So that's the meta proposal there. Perhaps over to Julio or Rachel.
Go first, Rachel, please.
Okay. Ours, basically the summary of ours that we decided it was just coming in with an open heart and being ready to receive and also share. Having that open heart can make people feel safe and able to share. And then not jumping to conclusions about what someone says, especially when there's a short period of time to share, and having the intention behind the people is also important too. Having the flow happen, it's important for having the flow happen, and then yeah, we basically, I'm trying to think of everything, but I think we basically summarized it into just with an open heart and communicating with an open heart and understanding that people are coming with different backgrounds and different things, and that there's a bigger story than what they're able to actually put on a screen in text in their conversations. So just having that open heart to receive everything that person has. So basically, I think I summarized it up pretty okay. So Julio, you can go. You're ready.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so we had some really beautiful perspectives on room 2, and well, one that I brought was related to nonviolent communication and how we should really study a little bit of it, because it really helps to have this open heart, to connect heart to heart connection before you actually go and propose something or request something. So, and then I could really maybe post a summary on nonviolent communication to the forum, so we can, maybe look to that. I'm a trained facilitator, and also I really like to preach about nonviolent communication, because I really think this is something for this new world that we want to live in. That totally makes sense. And then also Melanie mentioned 3 principles that really connect also to nonviolent communication, and they also make a lot of sense for our expressions and communications. That you be mindful, right? So you are present when you speak. You're mindful of what's going on currently, and you are also listening first, right? So you enter a conversation with the listening on. So you try to listen what the person is saying before you actually jump into response. So try to listen. What are their needs? What are they proposing before you know? And the third one is being awake or being conscious or being really uh, coming from your heart or being at the actual place. Also related to being present, but what I understand is more like being conscious and awake of your participation, right? And then also Bongi brought the idea of really creating agreements and foundations and having things written so we can kind of read to that and agree to that and abide to that, right? And so that's also very, very important. And one of the possibilities that we mentioned was that if you are posting something on Discord, for instance, and if it's bigger than the allotted amount of one message in Discord, and you get a warning, this message is too big, think about maybe posting that to the forum, because this is already something so valuable that if it's lost to Discord, then no one is ever going to read it anymore and reply to that. So if you are writing something that's concise enough to be bigger than the amount of text, please bring that to the forum, and then you just post a link to the forum and say, here's a proposal for that, and so on and forth. So this one possible agreement that we mentioned. And then there was these ideas from Daya about switching our discussions for being decentralized to being more distributed. So peer-to-peer talking between, doing more talking between us and connecting, instead of waiting for some central authority or even decentralized authority to bring the ideas and topics. And the other one is switch from the safe space. That's not, it's important to have a safe space, but it's also important to be brave, to be in a brave space where people can be brave enough to bring their own perspectives without the fear of being rejected or so. And the third part actually was the first part, but I missed the order. Was switching from having rigid models. I mean, if we are having a rigid, if we are having models or agreements, they should be rigid because otherwise they're not used. But we really need to think twice before actually setting up a rigid agreement. We really need to make sure that this agreement is serving the collective before we have this. So this is I think the summary of what we talked. Thank you.
All right, I'm last. We spoke about the intercultural differences around how direct people are in general and having a sensitivity around that, but also agreeing in groups like this that it is okay to be direct in the interest of time and efficiency for the meetings. And yes, being sensitive about how we express ourselves and the word we use, but also taking ownership as a receiver for our triggers. And this took us to the 4 agreements by Ruiz. I wrote them in the chat. One of them being impeccable with your word. So this is about the sender, but the second and the third one are about not taking anything personally and not making any assumptions. So that is about the receiver and about taking ownership for your own triggers. And then the other point that was brought forward was to also, in the work that we are doing here, where we are working on a document that already people have put a lot of time and energy in, that we honor that time and energy, and try in our enthusiasm to provide our feedback and input, that we are still also sensitive to the people who have done the first big amount of work, and respecting that without tearing it down all at once. So those were the most important points for us.
Cool. That was lovely. What I gathered was about 25 different key pieces here. Just going to go over some of these real briefly. Actually, what I'm going to do is propose an idea of how we can move this forward. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to copy it to the forum this week. We can use the forum to discuss, add any more, remove anything, whatever we want to do. Come to some form of pseudo agreement during the week. Everything we do in all of these spaces and all of life is version 1s. So all we're trying to do is get to version 1 that we could start agreeing to. And then of course, as we continue creating together, we can always, amend these, remove any agreements, add any more agreements, do whatever we need to do. But then following what Tyler was mentioning is we can just do a ratifying next call, which could just be a simple consent. If no one blocks it, we move forward. I think that could be a really beautiful way of speeding up our process here with everything we're doing in Renaissance Explorers. For example, when we're coming up with, should we call it game guide or not, or just Seeds game, I think that's something we can do with the consent model. Just us as a group, like, yep, we like this. If it's good enough for this group, I think we move forward with it. Anyway, so I think that's a really powerful model for just going forward, period. If we do ratify it next call, then potential for storytelling to take it from here, craft it, make it something beautiful, and we can have a document that's all lovely and gorgeous for us to remember and refer to as we're communicating. Does anyone have any amendments or changes to that flow?
I just wanted to mention there is another document running that I think Nikki started with the bullet points. Maybe you wanted to join the information there to this post.
Yeah, if you have anything else from today's call, just add it to the forum post. I'm going to post this and then we can just all keep it there in the forum. A couple things and then there's some hands up. First is how we communicate. Discord, this was said a lot, and I just want to reiterate it. Short form, so no proposals in Discord, please. That includes myself, Reiki. Just use Discord for announcements and coordinating. So we can always go to Discord if we're looking for a link or catch up with the videos or any big announcements that we need to follow with. So we can keep Discord really tight. And let's have a habit of this phrase, take it to the forum. If something starts going off in the Discord chat, say, yep, that's a forum, take it there. And then the forums is where we're going to keep all the long form proposals. Always start a forum post off with an actual proposal, even if it's a very basic one. It's like, I have attention, here's what I want to move to. So every forum post is a move to some direction, right? We're going somewhere.
Thank you for mentioning that we should always start with attention. What's driving this proposal? What's the issue here? What's the thing that sparks my heart into action?
And then the final, yes, awesome. And then the final space that we have is the Seeds forum. So after we get to some type of alignment with our conversation in the forum, we still want to bring it to the rest of citizens, especially if it's having anything to do with the game guide or anything to do with changing the actual game. So once we've talked about on the forum, we get to some type of alignment, then we can actually bring it to the Seeds forum and start engaging the rest of citizens with it. Last thing, direct. I love this one so much. I feel like it needs to be said a lot. I would love for us in this space to just all share an agreement that we're not going to take things personally, because we all believe that we love each other and that we're moving towards a more beautiful world together. So none of what we're saying has anything to do with harm. But the more direct and to the point that we can be, it's actually the kinder that we're being. You know, if someone's being a dick, that's a huge judgment. But if someone's being rude, being awful to you, just actually saying that and expressing that, be like, hey, when you said this, I felt this way. You know, and just be as direct as possible to the point of how you're feeling it. That gets into nonviolent communication. You know, I feel this way. Stop. I'm talking a lot, so I'm going to stop. I'm going to be direct. I'm going to pass it to Bambi because his hand's up.
Yeah, just a proposal. I'm seeing a lot of numbers here and a lot of them are mixed. And for me, as I start to think through them, some of them relate to Discord, some of them relate to the forum, some of them are clearly not for Discord, not for the forum. So I'm proposing to organize these according to that, because they're very different uses, and there's quite a lot of broad principles mentioned. So I just propose that it's organized in that way.
I absolutely love that. And there's a third category, which is these calls. So we're gonna have 3 different agreement forms that we have on how we communicate. Awesome. For example, in the calls, I think we need to have a fixed time limit for where anyone can speak. So if someone takes the floor, there's an automatic 2-minute, threshold before we cut them off, probably including myself. But just things like that, that'll be really helpful for holding the space. John?
You covered what I was going to ask, so I yield.
Also, I have a proposal. I would like to build an agenda before the call, if it's possible. Please know to prepare what are we going to be talking about.
Love that proposal. Let's do it right now. I kind of skipped the agenda because I was going to do a real quick comms thing, but that took a lot of today's call and it's probably worthwhile. Last framing thing, practice. I think what we're doing here, we're going to come together each week, and what we're doing is we're practicing. We're strengthening our ability to collectively sense together. We're strengthening our ability to make decisions. We're strengthening our ability to sense into the system and the systems that we're trying to create and propose ideas. So it's always a practice. So I think if we look at it as a practice, that likely a lot of us don't have a lot of practice in it, so we can recognize when people are fumbling and have their different foils. But that we show up and we grow together and we improve, and we have a kind of a joyful approach to it, as if we are playing a sport. It's like, yeah, that was an awesome proposal you made the other day, that was a great score, or I really loved that shift, or I loved when you called me out on what I was doing, because then I was able to see this pattern that I was having that I didn't recognize, and then I was able to get rid of that pattern. I'm super selfish. I love it when people call me out for my stuff, because then I get to improve. That's it. That's me going off. All right, today's journey. Drop-in comms agreements. That's what we just did. Squad share. So that's all the different squads that got together. We have 2 going through the visitor to resident citizen journey. And what are we going to call the game guide? So I think that was the 2 squads we formed last week. So if any of those groups met, or if anyone has anything to share for that, we'll do it there. Next, we're going to do one more dialogue breakout, which we're going to have time for. And this is anything remaining with section 0. So this is section 0 is all about setting the stage. So we've all read it. There's a lot of comments there. We're going to have one final breakout. And if everyone's just like, yep, we're happy with section 0, or nope, there's some strong tensions, that's what we're going to do here. And then we're going to harvest it. If there's still some tensions, then we can form some squads to have those breakouts during the week. And then likely we're just going to close today because we'll probably run out of time. Any suggestions or changes to this? I know Dimitri actually, or somebody brought up some other things they wanted to add, so we can absolutely do them after the breakout. But
I'm writing.
Yes.
Just to add that there was a third squad about translation that we had already the first meeting. Translations and accessibility.
Well, then take it away, squad shares. So let me take this off and you can share what happened in translations. Maybe you muted yourself.
Should I start?
Yes, why not?
Okay. Let me put the video, but I'm doing something else here in the kitchen. So I'm happy to have you all with me in my kitchen. So we had a first meeting yesterday about translations, and we since last week we had the good news from Alex that the passport is ready to be translated, and that is going to be translated in 5 languages, being Spanish, Portuguese, French, German, and Russian, the chosen languages. And with that, in the translation channel, we put out a call for people that represented those languages to be in the first conversation, and we are choosing to take the passport translation as our kickoff and as our pilot project to design a process for translation. So we will design the process on the go as we translate the passport. And we had all the languages represented in our first meeting, I mean, and it was great. So Alex is supporting us with the documentation, and we have people in our group. We are already talking about what platform to use in order to have a repository where we can take the translation and deliver there and starting designing the project. So that is the first news about the translation support.
Very practical. I absolutely love that. And that's very exciting. Would just to replant the idea about accessibility, translations are great, but I think there's a lot more that we can do to increase accessibility. So let's just keep that in our hearts and minds as we move forward. Did a group meet about the process of becoming a visitor resident citizen? I know that was a form squad, but did they actually get together and meet?
No, I don't know how we would do that. So, but I did start a post in the forum about that. The specifically the journey from visitor to citizen, but not about the onboarding process in general.
Yep, I think that's perfectly fine. That's actually the start of section 1 is that journey. So we can unfold it there, and then maybe next week after we introduce section 1, we can break out into the topic groups, because it's a huge component of it. Okay, then our third group was, what do we call the game guide? And we're not calling them players. Maybe we're calling it something else. So that's the 2 topics is, what do we call this document we're working on? And what do we call the people that are engaged in the document?
Right. So this working group, we discussed this in the distributed way through using the forum. We had like 16 replies to the proposal. And now the work this week is going to be to integrate that replies and try to rewrite the proposal. Matching that, hearing myself. Okay. Matching the requests for changes. There weren't quite so many requests for changes, but just a few ideas and corrections. So it's probably not going to be this difficult to change the proposal. Then as soon as it's done, we can maybe post that to Discord for thumbs up or more feedback, and then to actually make the change to the guide.
Cool. And that's exactly what we'll do. Is the start of next call, we can bring up what the closest proposal is, and we can ratify with a yay, and I can control find and replace all the players with something else. I was feeling really playful when I changed it from members to players, but hey, probably didn't need to be that way. Awesome. So where are we at today? So it's a squad check-ins. This is how we'll keep this form. Typically, we'll have a drop-in like we did, and then we'll do the squad shares and just follow up if that happened during the week. Cool. So the first dialogue breakout is anything remaining with section 0, and it's totally fine if we have nothing. So maybe we'll just go for like 7 minutes, 10 minutes tops, and surface anything else that might be remaining in section 0. So that's the introductory section. If anything's missing there that needs to be brought to the table before people dive into this document, if anything's there that shouldn't be there, anything like that. Is there any questions about the intent of this breakout? And or is there any comments that maybe we don't need to have it and we can just move into section 1? Happy to hear that too. All right, do we want to have the breakout? Thumbs up?
One idea also was maybe checking people here for hands up to see if anyone sees any point for section 0 that wanted to maybe bring to this forum instead of having breakouts. It's a maybe quicker way.
I like that. Yeah, perfect. If you have anything for section 0, just feel free to raise your hand. Cool. Melanie.
It's just minor thing. Don't call it 0 because people going into numbers might want to have it numbered in a different way. That's all I want to add.
It was assigned retroactively. You know, we did sections 1 through 4 first, and then you need to throw a number on it. It'd just be no section intro. I like that. Julio.
Yeah, there is a sensation that since DHOs are mentioned in section 0 as a tool for organizing and governance, I am sensing the need for a squad regarding DHOs and what are they used for. So what's a DHO versus the distributed co-op, because there are two different things, right? The seats co-op is one thing, it's not a DHO, and then we have the DHO. What's the difference between them both? I think I wanted to have a squad for that, or maybe, I don't know, if someone wants to join that exploration.
I absolutely love that. I'm wondering if it can go in one of the later sections where we explore our do that we're creating. And it might be parallel with that. That might be the introduction to that, where we explore the use of a do, like what is the function of it, what is its form, how do we create it, and then we'll go through the process of actually creating one for Renaissance explorers for ourselves. And I think during that journey, we'd uncover, you know, how a do is meant to be used because we're using it. So it's one of the best ways to kind of learn that way. What do you think of that?
Yeah, maybe I will start a forum post with some thoughts on DHOs, do's versus DCO. I'm calling them DCOs now, distributed co-op, because for instance, if you start a region like the Brazilian region, we are not going to necessarily have a DHO, right? The idea is that the distributed co-op for Brazil is already enough to vote for proposals for people living in this region, right? And a DHO is different because it has a membrane. You have to be kind of hired to work in a DHO, right? It's like an organization in a sense, and it contains a purpose. It's serving someone. It's serving someone that's external to it. And while the DCO is a region, so people just move in. I want to move in, I just move in. No one is inviting me. I just want to live there, and I go live there, right? It's like moving to a new village. You just moved there, right? There is available space, and like a distributed co-op for workers. If I work with this, I can join. I don't have to be invited in a way, right? So this is a co-op, but a do is different. It has a membrane. It's like an organization that's serving a purpose. And then the DCO is not serving a purpose, it's serving its people, it's serving whoever is living there. And the do is serving a purpose. It's an organization that's providing a service to a community and receiving value out of this, right? Receiving resources. So there is an exchange. It's like an organism. So I really wanted to stress the differences and start this working group to really clear these differences, and so we can use these terms better and within the ecosystem and realize, at least that's my perspective, and I wanted to have feedback on the forum, right?
Yeah, fundamental. So we'll just carry that on the forum. We got a lot of hands up, so I'm going to call you L, and I would really love for you to tell me how to pronounce your name.
Lineke.
Minica.
Lineke, yes. So first I have a question, and that is one of the goals of our work on the guide to shorten the guide?
Yes, so that was one of the questions here. Is there's anything in this section that doesn't need to be there? I think that's a constant question we can always ask ourselves, so we can make this any shorter. So yes. But I think I lost you. Is it just me or is it everyone else?
Yeah, I froze. My internet is a little unstable, but I'm back.
Okay. So what did you say?
So I missed most of what you said.
Oh. My response is yes, of course. If we can shorten the guide, let's remove anything that doesn't need to be there. Also, as part of my question is if there's anything in section 0, which is actually titled that, that doesn't need to be there.
Okay. And then my next question is if I have suggestions about how to make the first section flow better by changing some of the headings and making it more obvious how one section flows into the next section. Can we make that a forum thing as well, or?
Yeah, and you can comment directly onto the doc itself. So there's a couple strategies. If you're wanting to make a massive change, just make a copy to the document, make the changes to the section you want to make, and then bring that to the forum. So if it's like an overhaul, then you can say, okay, hey, I'd like to make this overhaul. Great. If it's minor changes, just make it as suggestions right on the document itself. 99% of the time, if it doesn't change any of the real intention behind it, then I just approve them. And I'm happy taking in that collective intelligence that way. So yeah, you can just make it directly on the doc.
Okay.
That's for everyone here. So if you have a big change you want to make, just
thank you. That was all.
Tear it apart, and then you can propose it as a change. Thank you, Linica. Maybe close. Max.
Yeah, no, very good.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, it reminded me that it says game pieces, and I wonder, I have a bit of feedback, yeah. I wonder if like game pieces kind of, for me, is the limitation of, it gives off the feeling as this is the stuff we use and nothing more. So to not use that kind of, because it implies that these are the pieces that we use to play and nothing else. And I also wondered if they are necessarily need to be in the beginning, or if we can just mention them, but explain more about them in a different section, because it makes that whole thing quite long, the introduction, and maybe it's not necessary, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm seeing some head nodding. That feels good to me too. Happy to move this to the appendix and we can reference it. So if you want to make a change to the wording, something else other than game pieces, especially if we're not going to be calling it a game anymore, that doesn't have to follow that way. So just make a suggestion out of the doc. I see you said some things, but I don't actually see a clear suggestion. So this needs to be a forum post. Let's bring it to the forum if you have a need for that. If not, just put it right in the doc. And then we can definitely move this to the appendix. I think that's a good idea. There you go. Cool. John.
Yes, maybe a little bit off topic. I want to go back to what Julio was saying about DHO. There are I never heard the term DHO before I came in here, and still trying to understand it. And then there's a conversation in one of the discords about should seeds have its own DHO, and I'm like, well, wait a minute. I think seeds is a DHO. it's a distributed human organization, or is it more than that? And how is it more than that? So, and if we're defining this game guide, it's for what? Isn't it for an organization, a DHO of some kind? So I got a little tripped up in trying to understand these these terms.
Yeah, I'm going to resist the desire to try to point my point of view on it and tell you what it is, because it's such an evolving space. But yeah, seeds itself is kind of this cacophony of nested do's and dows. But I think seeds as a whole is like, I would venture to call it just an economy. I think that's the simplest term we can go for it. So seeds itself is an economy, whilst within the economy, there's all sorts of do's, which is just another way of looking at either local governance or companies, nonprofits, for-profits, any group of people wanting to come together to do something, they can form a do, or a DCO, or I'm sure it can have all sorts of different acronyms and 3 letters describing what this is. But ultimately what a do is just a group of people coming together with a purpose to steward certain resources. So seeds can have its own do to say, hey, these are some resources which might be part of the harvest that seeds is then stewarding. That process would be a do, who's making decisions on how to steward that resources. But either way, we'll get into that.
Would it have a different constitution and and a different way of belonging? So when I'm becoming a citizen of seeds, what am I becoming a citizen of, and how is that different from this do?
I'm gonna take 2 seconds here to confuse everyone. I would love for the future for every region to have their own constitution, and for there to even be multiple constitutions all kind of running within seeds. I think that's kind of the most flexibility of diversity and freedom, that people get to sign up and say, hey, I agree with these 3 constitutions, and I only want to do business with people who also agree to these 3 constitutions. And then we can formalize our agreements and our kind of nested pods within shared structures, which are these constitutions. I also believe every region will probably have their own constitution. They could take something like the seeds one and say, this is ours, and then they can start making their own rules. So the idea is that every region, they have their own governance going on, and they inherit the governance of the parent that gave birth to them. That might be the main seeds do. But at that point, then they can start changing it to make it what they want it to be. And that's when they would have their own constitution to guide and compass how they make their changes within their own region. So ultimately, yes, anything that has a governance context would have a constitution that governs the governance, or guides the governance rather. Hopefully that made things more clear rather than less.
Yeah, I'm seeing in the chat a lot of agitation of people wanting to continue this discussion on the do versus DCO, and maybe, I don't know, we thought about having breakouts when we didn't have breakouts. I don't know, Raki, what should we do? Just take this discussion outside, or have some space now?
I mean, we have 13 minutes left in this call. I could introduce section 1. But that would feel probably rushed. So why don't we just finish up with this dialogue? There's some hand raised. So yeah, we've got 13 minutes. Raise your hands. Let's just do the dialogue now. That's my proposal. Or we can step into section 1 and introduce that and then close out today. If you would like to talk about do's, give me a thumbs up. If you want to move on to section 1, give me a heart. Those are the 2 reaction things that you can actually make. Use the emoticon thing, it's nice. I see a lot of heart or thumbs up. I don't see any hearts. So perfect. So thumbs it up it. So let's do this. Put your hand up if you want to speak, and then we'll just go in order. Julio, I think you're first.
Right. So I have this perspective on what a DHO is, and why is it different from the distributed co-op that seeds have, and this actually sparked from a discussion with Just on the different, it's a distributed co-op is a kind of a different type of do. It's a do for people to live there. So it's like a do for a village, you just move into the village. There is an open spot, an open house, maybe a place for construction. You just move there and start building. And so you don't have to add your skills. You don't have to add a resume. You know, you're, as long as you're a human, you're invited to Seeds, for instance. That's how you join Seeds. So that's why Seeds is a co-op. It's a DCO, not a do, because anyone can join, right? You don't need to have specific set of skills or to be invited to Seeds, right? Anyone can join. That's the same for joining a village or joining a region, right? So, but for joining a do like Haifa, if you want to join Haifa, you need to be able to contribute to what Haifa is doing, the purpose of Haifa. So for instance, we are building tools, right? So we need people able to build these tools or maybe communicate about the tools or, you know, so we have a specific purpose and we are set to achieve this purpose. We are serving this purpose. So what I see is a do serves a purpose. It's a different from DCO. The DCO, the purpose of the DCO is to have as many people on board as possible, all the humans or everyone that's able to join, just join, it's fine. We are going to, for a regional DCO, it's different because if you are to join, maybe you are belonging to you live there, right? You are nearby, you're nearby to that region, so you want to join, but you are a human. You don't need to have specific skills to join a DCO. But for joining a do, you are serving that purpose. And it's fine to have a do for a DCO. So you have a DCO in Brazil for the Brazilian DCO, and then we have a do to manage, you know, that are the guys who like to tend to that collective, to that commons, you know, so the Brazilian region is a commons. We have plantations, we have food production, we have a lot of stuff going on. And then we build 1 or 2 or 3 do's. There are organizations, because we do have Seeds organizations also. There are regenerative organizations. So organizations have do's, regions have DCOs. That's how I kind of see. And Seeds Global is also a region, the global region, it has a DCO. So that's my perspective, and I kindly would like to hear other perspectives.
Thanks, Julio. I'd love to see you come up with an actual drawing that shows this, then I can conceptualize it better. But anyway, Dimitri.
Alrighty. When you raised the question in the Discord about DHOs, I came up with few things in my head because I'm down to the ground person and I'm looking at the tools in our local area, what actually we can do with seeds, how we can actually practically apply them on the ground here in Golden Bay. And it all comes to DHO functionality. And also here comes the question, how other organizations can use those tools and what's benefits, how they can benefit from those tools. And main benefit, as I see, is to have your internal currency and have those project proposals. So you having pool of treasury and projects get funded automatically, and that's the main feature. But also what I see on a down the road in a longer perspective. So we're having all the system how we can reward our workers and members of DHO village in our own currency. We creating a reward system, but seeds themselves can be as a mediator between those groups. So when bigger groups want to communicate somehow, there's Global Eco-Village Network, there's Extinction Rebellion, and BAM, they want to co-create something, a bigger project, and they can actually start exchanging, because their own separate currencies are internal, but they can start exchanging seeds between each other. But the seeds value as for personal use, I don't see it as strong as for use for organizations. That's what I want to say. And within the organizations, it is important to have your internal currency. And touching the tools, I feel that, yes, within the DHO, tools current. There is tools for organizations for proposing the roles, badges, etc., etc. And I feel those questions already solved in most of those groups, as Gen or Extinction Rebellion. They have their own systems for ages that's been working really correctly and fine. And bringing something new with, the same, but, we have it done it on a blockchain, and what's the point, right? But the fact that in a DHO they have internal currency in projects and can minimize those things, that's the point that can attract people. So how we can actually make it easier to enter the DHO in this case? So I'm talking about using minimal tools to configure your tokenomics for your group. And from there, you, as a member of DHO, can communicate with your DHO through the Seeds Lite wallet. And that's entry point. And that's what I see for our village in Takaka. We can actually use only Seeds wallet, use regional forum, and use local scale marketplace. And this is two sets that we can apply in a place. And also I see that seeds in a Seed Lite wallet should be optional, or there should be another Lite wallet only based on regional, where you can, so let's say I'm a member of Gen, Global Eco Village Network, so I can switch in a Lite wallet to the Gen, exchange with people there, vote for projects there, and I'm a member of Takaka DHO, and I'm a member of this DHO. So I can have all those things in one app and switch between them, but it doesn't have to be necessarily connected to Seeds as well. It should be optional. That's my belief. Yeah, and I feel also, and I think it's down the line with the economy tools and with tokenomics, because eventually within the village, people want to have more flexible and tailored tools for their economy. And here I'm talking about savings pools, demurrage, about auto payments for the wallets, about that you can easy donate, that you have even some organizational membership that can set your parameters as UBI or something. So like we need to think down the line into those economy tools and smart contracts for economy within the DHO, reward system within the DHO. And I reckon that's what I got to say. I mean, there's quite a few points and I don't know where to go with them to. And I just gonna put them here and probably get some leads. And yeah, if there's any leads and anything to speak to.
Yeah,
there's
that 2
there's
minutes per
three.
person.
Yeah, we've got about 3 minutes, so let's try to rush off. But I can see 3 forum posts that I'd encourage you to create. One on beyond currencies, which is what I'd like to call it. But anyway, organization currencies. So we can start exploring what type of inter-organization currencies we can create. I think it's really boring to have an inter-organization currency that looks like an extra organization currency, i.e. in Seeds, we have an inter-organization currency called gratitude. It only works internally. And that's a new type of design for how that currency works rather than acting like a fiat currency, right? So it's very less exciting for me to do an inter-organization currency that looks like fiat. So anyway, currency designs, DeFi awesomeness, or we could just call it regional economics. And we could talk about different region economic protocols that we can put together. And then do blueprints. So once we launch the multi-tenant do, what we're going to do after that point is come up with some blueprints for setting up different dues. So we might have a do that's designed for a knitting circle. We might have a do that's designed for a region or DCO, whatever we're calling it. It's the same organization structure. We have one for a hedge fund. We have one for, a soccer team, whatever. Any group that wants to come together, we can start making blueprints based off of, first and foremost, all of the different organizations we have that want to be them. But in this process, we can blueprint it so other organizations can come and use those blueprints to go forward. So that could be a lot of fun. I took up a lot of time, I'm sorry. So if anyone has to go and your hand is up, please go first. Cool, so then if not that, Apostle. And then we'll close these three out and we can call it.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that these governance structures and all that are great, but we also have to think about how to make them super effective, because at the end, what the aim of seeds is to regenerate bioregions and to like create positive impact, regenerative impact in the world. And the more expensive these governance structures are, the more, the less money will flow, or the less resources, let's say, will flow into actual regenerative work. So there is a good idea to actually think about how to reduce the overhead and the overload of governance in order to basically, yeah, to be more efficient. I just felt like sharing that. There's no, I'm not sure if we should create a work group around that, but yeah.
Trying to think of that key takeaway there, but let's just keep running through so we can kind of end roughly on time. Melanie, thanks, Apostle.
Thanks, Apostle, because I also just realized it's for me a bit about efficiency, but I take now the responsibility for what I'm doing now, reflecting as Reiki invited us in the beginning on our communication. Because for me, I love this discussion. I have no clue what you're speaking about with all these three-letter words, and I love the learning. And still, what I observe right now is that you speak from the head. So you explain some things. And what I have observed, and maybe I'm wrong, in the Discord is that it was about something very different than what is in DHO. My observation was that there were more discussions about people who do not feel that they are seen or feel that they haven't received the money. I have no clue what you're speaking about because I'm still not in the Haifa thing. I'm waiting to be there at some point in time. But I feel we are speaking on two levels, and I just want to share this observation, even though the time is off for today. And I take the full responsibility for that.
No need to do that. Yeah, I mean, anytime you get a group of people together, you're going to have a bunch of weird human stuff that happens. I think that's why we put the H inside the DHO, because it is meant to be human-centric organizations. So it's more about a focus that I think we can maintain here is how do these structures really serve the human? That's why I wanted to put the H and the human right in the center of it. Okay, so we're about 2 minutes over. So a lot of stuff that's going on to the forum. Please, everyone, if you have something to take there, go ahead and take it there. If you don't have an invite to the forum yet, please just reach out to Apostle, right? And he can send you an invite if you're not there yet. Next week, we have 2 things we're going to ratify, which is our initial version 1. We can always edit it, of the comm strategy and the name of the game guide. We currently don't have any breakout groups, which have changed from squads. Awesome, for this week. So let's just take it to the forum. And starting next week, then it seems like section 0, introduction section is pretty much done. So the start of next week, we're going to kick off with section 1. And the beginning of that is going to be on the evolution from visitor to citizen. So that'll be our first breakout we have, is to kind of, unpack that. So this is something to think about. I'll leave this with you this week because we'll start there. The purpose of moving from visitor to resident to citizen is to ensure people are engaged. There's a practical component to make sure that they're actually human. the second component is it's a contribution to this system. What does that mean? Like, what does it mean to have someone actually contribute and commit, to have something at stake? So there's the skin in the game principle. That's very minor right now with, having them plant seeds, but it's still part of that principle. How do we say that, yes, you're invested in the system in order to be part of it? Also, it's how do we use this to benefit the entire network? So what does the whole ecosystem benefit from having people go through this process? Also, how can it be joyful, engaging, and something people want to do? So if we can find some kind of trifecta there, that everything that we're doing is very purposeful and joyful and in service to the whole, and to make sure that we don't get bots. So kind of all of that. So yeah, I'll plant that with you guys all, and I hope you have an incredible week. See you all in the forum and Discord and everything in between, and see you all next week. You can unmute yourselves and say goodbye and close it out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Adios.
Bye. Bye.
Right.